Hey, my man, what's going on? Greg,
Uh,
you all right?
uh, yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm gonna
Should I
I'm gonna switch you. No, no.
reclaim host or not?
Yeah. You reclaim host.
Okay, and I want to change to my name, so I think this is me. Let me
Also,
see.
can you you can start recording at any point yourself. You know how to do it?
Okay.
You know how to do that?
Yeah. I see a recording pose. I see. I'll do that. Let me just.
I'm already streaming it, so I already moved over.
Can you hear me? Are you muted? Did I mute you? Ask to unmute. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, because I put the security in, so that's
Right.
that's
So I unmuted and you unmuted. Okay, good. But you're co-hosting, right? Should I
no
make you?
Paul. I mean, you can leave me a co-host, but make you can have as many co-hosts as you want. It doesn't need
Right,
to be one. So you can make Paul co-host, you can make, you can unmute people, whatever you want to do. It's up to you.
right. I see.
I'm gonna share the meeting. It's just I can't, Paul is gonna moderate. He already said he will.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
he's
Good.
much more smarter than me as far as that's the subject concerned. I need somebody who understands it better. I mean, I don't know a lot about the subject matter.
Yeah, but the moderation is really like when I moderated, what I did is basically uh, maybe I could add something along the way, but that was not essential. You just like introduce, and then you just watch who is. If anybody has questions, then you just simply pose the question at the right time.
My advice,
Yeah.
let me what I can do is they're probably going to be 30, 40 people on. It depends. I'm not sure. I mean 40
Okay.
people yeah, go ahead.
Whatever. Yeah. What do you think? What's your advice?
Let's maybe unmute if you're comfortable, and then people
I'm
can just
muting
ask a question.
everybody. Okay, fine. Yeah, you can unmute. I mean, yeah, it's just. By the way, are you co-hosting? By the way, let me see.
I am.
Okay. Yeah, because yeah, we can unmute. It's always like in case of we do get a bomber.
Yeah, that's
We have
that's
to.
that's
Yeah.
why the reason I changed. They can rename and they can unmute.
Right.
Let's
Yeah.
just see how it goes.
Yeah.
Because
Here is
first,
Paul.
a friend of mine just sent me pictures from Kiev. Man, fuck.
Yeah. I've seen it. Yeah. It's
No, he's the first account. He's there. Paul
right.
W.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
know. I know.
Paul W. That's not Paul T. Right? Hi, Paul. How are you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's not. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so sad. I mean, while we have a couple of minutes, just talk about it a little bit. I mean, it's just Putin is
Yeah.
just a madman. I mean,
Yeah.
it's ridiculous. And this pictures are just disheartening. I mean, it's crazy. They're bombing civilians. That's what scary. And I don't
Uh,
know, I don't know why. I don't know why it's happening.
they want to create a panic because yeah, that's the main thing. They basically maybe saying they're doing it accidentally, but maybe they just want to create a panic so that people will, a lot of people left and they're still leaving, but they may want to, make sure that. But I'm amazed that Zelensky he's still in. Yeah, I guess I probably should unmute everybody. How do I do this? Where do I go? To
Well, you
the
want, yeah, maybe that's going to
to
be a good
the
idea. So let me make me a host. I'll do it.
make you host. Okay. Make a host. Okay. All right.
Okay. Let me just do that right now. All right. And now I'm just going to say participants, unmute everybody.
Yeah,
Let's
there are
see.
only Paul and Regina. I see here, Regina. Yeah, you can unmute yourself, I think, if
Well,
you
no,
want
I
to.
thought because they came in a little bit earlier. Hi,
Yeah.
Paul. Hi, Regina. How are you?
Hi, good, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us. Where are you hailing from?
Chicago.
Hi,
How about you all?
Chicago. Well, we're in New York. We're gonna have a big group from London today.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, is Regina from Phoenix? How are you, Regina? So yeah, we have about 40 people from London today that's gonna join. We have a large group in New York. And then I guess even though we're gonna talk about unrelated topic, which is the conflict in Ukraine in the beginning, just so that because kind of like political aspect. I mean, it's all stems back to in fact uh, to history repeats itself, and I guess Roman Republic and Roman Empire didn't really need precedent to attack, but they always did have a precedent. So Putin, I think, is using that not to compare him to the Roman Empire or anything like that, but he's trying to create an empire. So me and Greg were just discussing if you have anything to add. I mean, it's pretty sad what's going on in Ukraine. I just had a friend of mine from Kiev send us crazy pictures. Greg, I'm gonna make you a host again.
Okay, so I'm going to share the screen for now anyway, right? We could speak with it first, so I don't have to do anything now. Okay.
Yeah, today's topic, just so you guys know, is we're going to talk about Marius, and Greg, will introduce himself and who he is and what is our group is all about and what do we do. And so I don't want to take his thunder. He's a presenter today. So, and then I just, again, like I said, we usually start about 5-10 minutes just talking about current events and what is it, where does the current event starts. Today, right now, we're talking about Ukraine, to what's going on with Ukraine. It's so sad. So, Greg, what do you think with geopolitical Putin attacking Ukraine? What was in what world did he decide to do that? Why did he decide to do that?
I think it's just his personal ego. He has this imperialistic point of view, and he just, they say that he's increasingly isolated, and that there are not too many people having access to him. So who knows? And especially with the virus and all this stuff, the population is in bad shape. So he needs to deflect population, but I don't think he planned to start like this. He was hoping to bully without military action, but I think he just got angry. He lost it. I think I don't think he planned this action to begin with. He was hoping that NATO and West will back off to some degree and give him some concessions. And apparently he it didn't happen, and he felt angry. I think he just it's an impulsive decision, and I don't know. So somebody has a phone.
What's going on?
I don't know. Somebody has interference. Okay, it stopped. No, not really. Yeah, I think maybe some people should. I don't know who has interference. Maybe it's you. No, I don't know.
Who, me? No, I don't think so.
No. Then
I was just talking to you 2 seconds ago.
Yeah. That's right. So, yeah. Do you see anybody who? Yeah.
The problem is that since I'm a co-host, I can't do anything. Now, give me a host again. Maybe I can, and then you can keep co-host, and I can then manipulate and help you with the security of it. Give me a host and keep yourself a co-host.
Okay.
Here you go. Thank you, sir. Okay, I found out who the culprit was.
Yeah. Where was it?
No, it's just Patrick. I mean, so do you want to still mute everybody then? Is that the case?
Well, yeah, let's have Paul unmute. I know you'll and I don't know, Patrick, if you realized, but you had some interference with the sound. I don't know what it's about, right? Is that the case, Zach?
Yeah, I mean, well, let's just take one at a time. Just want to again say hi to everybody. And then again, Greg is going to present Marius. And so if you guys can let us know, what is your knowledge of the Roman Empire in particular. You don't need to particularly say, who the Marius was, because Greg is going to go into more detail. And then, or you could say that, about the subject matter, and then also tell us where you're from. You can either chat, you can put it through chat. Well, it's always good to know. Greg, can you admit people, or you're not able
Yeah.
to? Oh, you're not a co-host.
I'm not.
No, let me see.
How does that happen? I do share the screen.
So I just made you a co-host. I'll make Paul co-host.
Okay. So with regards to Ukraine, right, we have a few minutes while we talk about this. What amazes me is that the president, Zelensky, who not a professional politician, found himself is a comedian, used to be, and an actor, and he found himself in such a dire situation, and the Russians basically put some misinformation that he fled, and he had to do he showed the video where he is standing at the Maidan Square, which is like at the center of the Kiev, and said, "No, we're here. We're going to defend it." I mean, it's really amazing. He is under such pressure. He is also being hunted, by special forces, Russian special forces, because to decapitate the government, he is the only democratically elected president, and without him, another person who would take leadership wouldn't be as legitimate. So it may crumble the resistance. That's the idea. But he really shows a lot of courage and resolve. It is really amazing. It's hard to say what's really happening on the ground, but it seems that they are resisting for now. I mean, barely, but it's such an unequal fight. Yeah, so there is a resolve, people's resolve as well.
Yeah, what's strange, I mean, it's also pretty sad, but at the same time, it's a friend of mine right now is in Kiev. They're all hiding in their basements. They stopped the trains in Kiev, and people are hiding in the subways. And they said that they're not attacking civilians, but a friend of mine sent me a picture of a huge building being blown out by a rocket. It's very sad. It's very sad.
Yeah.
And also, I saw, in fact, Poroshenko, who was a former president, still in Kiev. And a lot of people, they have a lot of stake politically and business-wise stayed in Kiev. So they don't want to leave. And the United States did offer Zelensky to leave, right? And then he did this decline.
Yeah. Yeah, he said, I need ammunition and not a ride. That's what he said. It's kind
It's
of
so
funny.
sad. And
Yeah.
in fact, they say there's a lot of people in Russia currently.
And when there was the refugee crisis,
One second.
cities that were erected. I'm not seeing that.
Hey, Beverly, would you, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I muted her. Hey,
Right,
Paul, how are
right.
you?
Yeah,
So,
guys,
Paul,
if you get an idea, an ability to unmute, please watch out for the sound and mute yourself if there is some noise.
yeah, let me just check security again, just make sure that we don't have any renaming. So renaming commission is taken out. The I don't know if you want to keep the video on for people having what happened last time, but so what else?
Yeah, so I guess we're probably, what time is it? We should probably start, right?
Like, give it a couple more minutes. It's
all right.
you know, we
so Zach, you'll start the recording then, right?
yeah,
I'm
let me do
sharing
that
the
right now.
screen. I don't see it now.
Okay, fine. I will start recording.
Zach, maybe just give me a moment, some idea of what role you want me to play here.
Yeah, so whenever people would put the question in the chat, or you can ask people to present the question, and maybe in collaboration with Greg, to have moments of pause for people to ask questions whenever there is something that we can pause at a minute to maybe have people to, you know, kind of go back to the charts, or maybe a map was not understood, or maybe they don't understand the concept, you know, or maybe explain, or maybe answer the question if, you know, Greg won't be able to, or yeah, you'll have something more to add or comment. So the role
if you
is
have to comment,
the
please
role is
do.
to kind of moderate it. So in fact, if you have something you wanted to add in that respect, to say, Greg, I have something to add, and you just add, and also ask the questions.
And some people who really feel like they want to add something or speak, you know, you could raise a hand and we could unmute you, you know, and then I'm sure Paul could do that, ask to unmute, and then you could ask or make a comment or ask a question if you have a desire to really speak out.
All right, so give me a moment, Greg. Let me just post that we're live so that people know, and then we'll give me 1 second. All right, go ahead. People are going to join as they, I guess,
Okay.
as time progresses.
All right. So you start the recording?
I did.
Okay. Usually you get confirmation, but oh, all right. Okay, so let's start the presentation. I don't know, I have some kind of echo. Do you hear it?
1 second, let me mute everybody. 1 second. I think there's people that need to be muted.
Because I have an echo. No, now I don't. Okay, good. Okay. So this is the life of Gaius Marius up to a certain point, because we're going to cover social war and then civil war later on. So up to the point of the social war. So here is the Gaius Marius bust. Unfortunately, his nose was cut off. That's what usually happens. But as you could see, so he lived he was born in 157 BC and died in 86. So he was a Roman general and statesman. He is most known for being a victor of Cimbric and Jugurthine wars. Well, we need to unmute somebody here. Aideen, please mute yourself. Okay. And he held an office of consul and unprecedented 7 times during his career. And he was also most noted for his important reforms, and especially reform of the Roman army. He basically created the Roman professional standing army. So, and we'll talk about this later. So now one of the main sources about Gaius Marius is Plutarch. You know, that's him, a very celebrated historian who wrote parallel lives of most famous Greek and Roman statesmen, generals, figures. So obviously he lived much later, in the 1st century AD and 2nd century AD. And he claims so he wrote the life of Marius, by the way. So that's why we're going to refer to him a lot. That's his bust, his picture. So he claims that Marius' father was laborer, and most of the contemporary historians dispute that. They believe that Marius had connection with nobility, that he was most likely from the equestrian status. He was born in the city of Arpinum. This is about maybe 60 miles southeast of Rome, not very far. And by the way, also Cicero also was born in that city, Arpinum. By the way, if you have, you know, so I don't have to do it, I'd appreciate if Paul and Zach admit people as they come. I don't know, you should be able to have that ability. So I don't have to think about.
Yeah.
So Plutarch compared, in his parallel lives, he compared Gaius Marius to Pyrrhus. You know, Pyrrhus of Epirus, famous general king of Epirus, who wreaked the havoc in Italy. But usually in his parallel lives, after giving a life of one Greek and then one Roman, he also wrote the explanation why he compared them. And unfortunately, that explanation for Marius and Pyrrhus did not survive. However, you know, the modern historians try to reconstruct, you know, reading the lives, trying to reconstruct why they think he put those two and compared them, and they believe that they are characterized, both of them are characterized by inflated hubris and could never satisfy their ambitions. And the lesson is that the ambition unchecked by moderation and good judgment will ultimately lead to destruction. They both were elevated to the greatness through war. So at the beginning of his career, and he's obviously a military man, you know, he started his career that in 134 BCE, Marius joined a personal legion of Scipio Aemilianus as an officer for the expedition to Numantia. And now I just wanted to show you, this is the Spain after Second Punic War, when the Romans took over the areas of Carthage. Then they created specifically two provinces, one Hispania Citerior, which is the near Spain, and Hispania Ulterior, it's a further Spain. So that's where the action later on happened. And I have another map that specifically goes about the conquest of Spain in various stages.
I have a question. Who is gayer, the Greeks or the Romans?
Who?
Who was gayer, the Greeks or the Romans? Who got more boy pussy?
Gayan? What are you talking about? Who is more gay?
Get rid of this
Who was
guy.
bigger faggot? Romans
Get rid
or
of this guy.
Greeks?
Zach, get this guy out.
This guy is, oh my God.
He's out. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Yeah, that's what happened.
Shit, bitch, cocksucker, goddamn
I
motherfucker,
can't-
I hate niggers.
Yeah,
White power,
no,
Heil
that's-
Hitler. Kill all the niggas and Jews in the Auschwitz. Heil Hitler. White power.
Wow. Do we still have them?
Which one is that? 1 second. Which,
Nigger. Shut the fuck up, you black piece of shit. You're a black nigger. Shut your
Well,
fucking mouth. You deserve
can
to
you-
be put on the fucking
Can you
wall and
mute
shot.
everybody?
You don't deserve to have rights. You don't even deserve to
Mute
talk.
everybody?
Shut up.
Yeah,
What are you
one
doing on
second,
here?
one
You
second,
people
one
don't belong
second.
to be on the internet. They need to take the internet away from you fucking people. You don't need it anymore. Alright? You're a worthless fucking nigger. Don't forget about it. You understand me? You'll never be anything more than a worthless,
1
black
second.
nigger.
How do you mute everybody? 1 second.
You still didn't answer my question. Who fucked more tight boy pussy, the Greeks or the Romans?
That's so fucking
They were
good.
both really gay, but who was gayer? It's a simple question. How big was Julius Caesar's cock?
Oh shit. 1 second. Who else?
What
This
if Julius-
guy. All right. Did they all leave? Paul. Greg, did they all leave?
I don't know. We don't hear anybody, but I think, well, we
I think
have to
I mean-
unmute as Paul. I'll ask Paul to unmute. Okay, Paul, you can unmute now.
This is disgusting.
I'm very reluctant to admit anybody because I don't know who.
Yeah,
No,
yeah, don't unmute.
Well, no,
unless,
but they're all muted. Hold on, I put the security and they're all muted.
yeah,
so.
but they show the pictures. It doesn't make sense to mute
No, I
anybody.
also put the picture, no pictures either.
Okay,
So you can admit no issues.
I hope so. That's pretty disrupting. All right, so let's continue. Okay. So now in 134, Marius joined personal legion of Scipio. So now, as you could see, the stages of conquest of the Spain. This is very interesting. In the green, this Hispania, Citerior, and the further Spain as well. And then there is an expansion happen between 197 and 154. This is the yellow area. and the further expansion continued until 29 BCE, and in that inspection, you could see Hispania. By the way, do you see my Paul? Do you see my cursor?
We can see a cursor,
Yes.
yes.
Right.
So, Greg, one thing. So you mentioned, the war with Carthage. Can you just, whenever you mention a concept like that, if it's possible to just give one sentence to, what that was?
Yeah,
So
sure.
Yeah.
Sure. This is the specifically second Punic War, where Hamilcar Barca, the father of Hannibal, moved into Spain, and after his death in Spain, his son-in-law, Hasdrubal the Fair, who was married to the sister of Hannibal, he founded this city, Nova Carthago, which is like Cartagena right now, Cartagena, the city in Spain. So, and from there on, they expanded. Another another place of note, the city of Saguntum, that rebelled against Carthage and had a alliance to Rome, and by that time, Hasdrubal the Fair was dead, and Hannibal took command, and that really was the beginning of the Second Punic War, where Romans objected. They didn't come to the to relieve the siege, but they started to move Roman troops across the Alps, and that's when the Hannibal started his advance from there on. So this green area, this is the territory of Carthage that Romans took over after the end of this war. So you see, it says 197. The war finished in 201 after the Battle of Zama in 202. So after all this, now then they started to expand. There were 3 Celto-Iberian wars as a result of it, because this is the tribes that were living in this area, and as a result of this 3, the third war was the war that was conducted by Scipio Aemilianus, and ended up in the siege of Mnemonia. So it's basically what happened is, just before going on, I just want to mention an interesting thing, that when Marius joined Scipio, Plutarch described this little thing, that during the dinner, people asked Scipio Aemilianus where the Roman people would find a worthy successor to him, and the younger Scipio gently tapped on Marius, who was sitting next to him, and said, well, perhaps this is the man. It's an anecdote, of course, that Plutarch tell us. But generally, what happened here is the Scipio raised an army of 20,000 and also 40,000 allied and mercenary troops. And what's most notable here in the siege of Mnemonia is that the most important allied troops were Numidian cavalry, commanded by no one else but Juguta. And he is a very important person, because the whole war happened later on when he became a king of Numidia. But he apparently was fighting together with Romans, commanding the cavalry. He definitely knew Marius himself, his future opponent, and he also learned about the corruption that exists in Roman society, the bribing and on the high level. I mean, and that was part of his future success. However, here he trained troops. He constantly, before, it's like kind of like tying the knot. He marched the troops around. He took cities. He trained them, and then eventually he surrounded the city of Mnemonia, and the siege started. So the people of Mnemonia sent ambassadors first, who just simply asked that in return for surrender, just to be granted liberty. But at this point, Scipio refused. He already too much was invested in there, and it was a matter of his reputation. So when those ambassadors came back and told their people in Mnemonia that he refused because they didn't ask for anything, just their liberty, they actually killed those ambassadors because they thought that they were cut a deal with Romans and they were bribed. And after this, the city refused to surrender, and then the starvation set in, because basically he didn't plan to storm the city. He just really wanted it to conduct the siege, to starve them out. So cannibalism ensued, and and eventually people started to commit suicide. This is the depiction of like a picture of how the people suffered, and what happened. So they eventually started to kill their own families, and the remaining population only surrendered after setting a fire to the whole city. And Scipio was so angry when he took it that it basically leveled the whole city. So that was in the late summer of 133 BCE, and the siege of Mnemonia was recorded by several Roman historians that admires the sense of freedom of the ancient Iberians. So another interesting thing that the most famous Spanish writer, Miguel de Cervantes, he wrote a play about this event called La Numancia, and this stands today as the most well-known dramatic work of Cervantes. It's a play, obviously. It's not a novel. Okay, so Marius had ambitions for political career in Rome.
Greg, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Very quickly, sorry. So how would you say, in respect to the treatment of the Iberians or Gauls, did there was during the Carthage War, Punic Wars, especially the second one, I remember when the Romans went to Iberia, right, to New Carthage, they had a varying success, right? Initially, they sent the very incompetent generals. I think this is probably the one you're referring to, is the Scipio's uncle,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And he was basically crazy. He was sleeping with the wives of nobles, and he was doing all this really nasty things. And then they had to send new generals who really had a lot of success there by making them more friendly. So do you think that made Romans more successful because of the fact that they found more keys to the indigenous population, Gauls living in there? What is your personal opinion?
Well, judging of what I mean by the most successful general, you're probably talking about Scipio Aemilianus. Judging to what he did to Mnemonia, it doesn't look like he was very successful in being friendly. Well, maybe in other cities he was, but the Romans were not known for their friendliness. But once they conquered people, they gave them a lot of freedom, and treated them decently, and allowed them self-rule as long as they paid taxes and all this stuff. But yeah, so far, you know, it was very brutal what he did to Numantia. So I don't know if anybody else has other opinions. I know that they really loved the Carthage. You know, Carthaginians treated them fairly well, except some cities that rebelled, like Saguntum. But yeah, Romans, they rebelled against Romans continuously. As you could see, there were 3 wars. This is the 3rd one. You know, so you see, there are 3 Celto-Iberian wars, and there's in stages. So you see this pink area. This is the period from 154 to 29 BCE, and this is the you know, the siege of Numantia was in 134, 133 BCE in that area. So it's a part of that 3rd Celto-Iberian War, and once most of it was conquered, and you see the last piece was conquered already at the time of Augustus, Asturia. So yeah, it took a long time, you know, right after the Second Punic War, 197, and it just went all the way to, you know, for 200 years. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I mean, I just, yeah, I go ahead, sir. What did you say?
Yeah, I just want to see if anybody else wants to add any comments, and if there is anything in the chat with regards to if there are any questions, further questions.
Nothing in the chat.
Okay.
Nothing in chat, yeah. People are
All
still flustered, I think. My apologies. I want to let everybody in and trust the system. I guess I should have put a security initially. Remember, I told you, Greg. Sorry for that, guys.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So far, we're able to continue. That's good. Now, Marius had an ambition for political career in Rome after this his military period under Aemilianus. So Plutarch is telling us that the client of the Marius was a client to the family of Caecili Metelli. You know, this is one of the noble family in Rome, and Marius ran for election as one of the 24 special military tribunes of the first 4 legions, who were elected, and the rest were appointed by the magistrate who raised that legion. So Caecili Metelli were a plebeian family, but they were part of the nobility. So I just want to remind that there was in 367 BCE, we're talking about more than 200 years before, there was a Licinio-Sextian laws that ended discrimination of plebeians, opening to them the office of consulship, and therefore they formed the new ruling class consisting of both plebeians and patricians. You know, so the things change now. Plebeians are also part of the ruling class. So and then Caecili Metelli were from plebeian stock, but they were part of the ruling class, rich, and senators and so on. So in 119 BC, Marius returned as a plebeian tribune. So this event's already happening in Rome, by the way. So Plutarch relates that as a tribune, you know, as you know, plebeian tribune had a lot of power. He had a veto power over the many laws. So he tells us that Marius, against the wishes of his patrons, pushed through a law that restricted the interference of wealthy in elections. It meaning that the way they interfered by giving bribes, you know, and trying to, I mean, in a way you could say they're interfering very similarly to what's happening in the United States right now. But he, and we're trying to limit it, but unsuccessfully so far. So he managed to create this law restricting that interference. And consul at the time, Lucius Aurelius Cotta, appealed to Senate to resist this law and sanction Marius. So Marius, in his turn, threatened him with a prison. When the other consul and Marius' patron, Lucius Caecilius Metellus Dalmaticus, supported his colleague, Marius called lictors and arrested Metellus, throwing him into prison. This was quite spectacular. So the consul was in the prison, and also this is the Marius was client to this family. So Senate after that relented and accepted the law. So this won Marius immense respect of everyone as a courageous and incorruptible politician. Later, when he opposed the distribution of bread, citing the cost, he won reputation as someone who doesn't take sides, but acts according to conscience. So it means that first he acted against optimatis by restricting the wealthy, having effect on elections. Then he acted against popularis, because distributing the bread to poor, that's kind of like the other side. But he said that it costs too much, it destroys the budget, and he opposed that. So he kind of were playing both sides. And well, I'm sure there are plenty of people didn't like it on both sides, but he also showed that he is objective and he cares about the budget, the city, so it won him popularity. In 114 BC, Marius, as a proprietor, was sent to govern highly sought after province of Hispania Ulterior. You remember that's one of those provinces that in a southeast of Spain, which is probably like an area where contemporary Andalusia is. So this was very, very rich province because it had silver mines there. So and Marius had some success fighting brigands around it and stabilizing those silver mines and creating a stable income for Rome, and obviously enriched himself as well. That was part of the privileges of being a proprietor or almost like a governor, basically. So, and certainly when he returned in Rome in 113 BCE, his personal wealth was greatly enlarged. He became a rich man. He received no triumph on his return, but as a result of his new wealth, he did marry into nobility. He married Julia, who was actually aunt of Julius Caesar. The Caesar family was a patrician family that was somewhat impoverished at the time. So he gained respectability by marrying into a patrician family, and the Julia received a great injection of energy and money. So now we're going to go to the next part of this and what we call Jugurthine War. So as you remember, here is Juguta. This is the dates of his life. He was born in 160. So in 133, 134, he was in his late 20s. And he has commanded cavalry at the siege of Mnemonia. So now he became an enemy of the Rome in a way. So this war started in 112 BCE and happened because of Roman exasperation with his ambitions. So he became an Numidian king after the death of his father, and he had also two half brothers, and it was supposed to be shared rule, but he killed his half brothers. After that, he massacred Italians who lived in Numidia, and this is the land of Numidia. So as you could see, let me just do something here. As you could see, this is the the green part is the Roman territory, Roman province. Then the pink part is the Numidia, and then kind of like a yellow part is the Mauritania, which is also an important kingdom. We'll talk about this later. So he basically killed all the Italians living in the Numidian kingdom, and then he also bribed many prominent Romans to support him in Senate. Regardless of that, one of them even was a consul at some time. So after the start of hostilities, the first army was sent to Numidia. It was apparently bribed to withdraw. And then the second army was defeated and forced to march under the yoke, which is a huge humiliation to Roman pride. While Marius had seemingly broken with Cecilia Metelli because he put one of them in prison, if you remember, when he was consul, somehow by this time, they did not object to him being appointed as the legate to this war. So the Quintus Caecilius Metellus at the time was leading the war, and he didn't object, and the Senate appointed Marius as a legate, which is like one of the generals subordinate to Metellus in this war. So he arrived and conducted the war together, and obviously this is where he truly showed his skill and his being a great general. So there is a very important historian here that many of you may be unfamiliar with. I mean, this is Salus. This is the Gaius Sallustius Crispus, known to us as a Salus. So he is probably was the first Roman historian known to us. So his dates, as you could see, he was born in 86 BC and died in 35. That was obviously a generation after the war. However, he wrote a special work of Jugurta, the war with Juguta, and so a little bit about him. So he is also was a politician. He was born in an Italian plebeian family, and in the city of Amiternum, which is in Sabine territory, not far from Rome. He belonged to the party of Populares, and later a partisan of Julius Caesar. His family was of equestrian order and had full citizenship. In 46 BC, he served as a praetor and accompanied Caesar in his African campaign, which ended in decisive defeat of the remnants of the Pompeian party at Thapsus. So I just want to show you, Thapsus is this city. This is a French map. I call it Thapsus, but this is the city of Thapsus. It's in a modern Tunisia, and this is where the last battle of the civil war between Pompey and Julius Caesar happened. In the defeat, and Pompey after this escaped into Egypt, where he was assassinated. And then the whole story with Julius Caesar and Cleopatra starts. Okay, so now here is an interesting thing, because we don't know much of Salus. That's him. However, what's interesting is that there is those of you who ever been in Vienna, there is a Austrian Parliament building, which is this, built at the end of the 19th century by a famous architect. And what's interesting here, that it was constructed in 1883. The upper part of the ramp was adorned by four sculptures on either side, showing ancient Greek and Roman historians. And it is to remind politicians of their responsibility to history. So on the Greek side, the Greek historians were very famous, and I'm sure most of you know this, is Thucydides, Polybius, Xenophon, and Herodotus. On the Roman side, it was Julius Caesar, who was also a historian because he wrote Gallic Wars and Civil War, and there are a few other work attributed to him, mostly really about his own campaigns in his Alexandrian campaigns, African campaigns, and Hispanic wars, but also Tacitus, Livy, and Salus. So this is the statue of Salus, and as you can see in the back, it's a statue of Livius or Livy. This is Titus Livius, that's his name. We know it says Livy, but this is the Salus. So he is known as one of the most important Roman historians. So I thought it's an interesting piece of information. This is the Parliament building of Austria in Vienna, and these are the couple of, I mean, I didn't show all of it. All right, so here is what's happened during the Marius period, during the Jugurthine War. So there was a battle at Muthul. Marius' actions probably saved the army of Metellus from annihilation. Jugurtha had cut the Romans off from the river of Muthul. It's this is the battle. It's happened right here. This is the river of Muthul. Okay, it says Suthul here again. This is different probably language, or maybe, but so it's happened in 109 BCE. Okay, so the Roman had to fight Jugurtha in the desert, where Numidian cavalry had an advantage, and the cavalry and the war elephant scattered Romans into a small detachment and soon had control of the battlefields. Each group of Romans were fighting for survival independently, and at this point Marius reorganized a few detachments and led a column of 2,000 through the Numidians to link up with Metellus, and together they led their men against Numidian infantry who occupied the hill, and after gaining control of the hill, Marius and Metellus led their men against the rear of the Numidian cavalry, and the Roman gained the initiative, and the Numidians had no choice but to withdraw. So that's considered to be a victory. Probably the first major victory in this war. So, and Marius was successful and popular in the army, and the rumors about his military exploits and valor trickled to Rome, and many legionaries wrote home about it. You know, they admired him as a leader and a general, and the opinion formed that there won't be victory in war with sly Jugurtha until Marius will be voted consul and will be the head of the whole campaign. versus Metellus. So in 108, Marius wanted to leave for Rome to go for consulship, but Metellus prevented him and only gave him permission 20 days before election. Marius forced march to Utica. This is the Utica. And by the way, this is the territory of Tunisia. This is the Carthage, right? So again, Carthage and Utica is the territory of the Roman province, and this area is the Numidia. So he forced march to Utica, and by the way, he tells that the fortune teller in Utica predicted his success. He barely had time to arrange his things for election. In 107, Marius was elected consul, first time. Metellus shed bitter tears when he learned about that decision, and he refused to personally hand over command to Marius. He left before Marius arrived. So Marius had to recruit more legionaries. So, and he, we're going to talk later on about the property requirements for serving in the Roman army. This actually was the main point of Marius' reforms later on. But at this point, Marius was asked Senate to waive property requirements in order to get more recruits. And he cited the precedent of that happened during the Second Punic War. There was really most of the army was annihilated. So the property requirements were waived at the time. So he cited that, and the Senate granted him the authority to recruit troops without property requirements. And with more troop mustering in southern Italy, Marius sailed for Africa, and later on he left his cavalry in the hands of his newly elected quaestor, Lucius Cornelius Sulla. Yeah, we're going to talk a lot about him later on, especially in the later presentations. So Jugurtha was fighting a guerrilla war at the time. It appears that no strategy would work better than Metellus' strategy of denying Jugurtha local reinforcement and support. So I have to say that Jugurtha was extremely skillful commander, and he was a legendary. It was almost, if you read the whole campaign by Salus, you realize how difficult it was to pin him down. Marius fought a few successful battles and drove Jugurtha into Mauritania. Mauritania is a neighboring kingdom. Again, I just want to go to this map just to show you. So this is the Numidia, and this is Mauritania. Okay, so he drove into Mauritania, and meanwhile, Jugurtha was trying to get his father-in-law, King Bochus of Mauritania, to join him in the war against Romans. So he married his daughter. So, and this is the Bochus. Bochus the first, the king of Mauritania at the time. So in 106, it was evident that Rome would not defeat Jugurtha's guerrilla tactics through military means. Therefore, Marius resumed negotiation with Bochus, who, though he had joined in fighting, had not yet declared war on Rome. Ultimately, Marius reached a deal with Bochus, where Sulla, who was friendly with the members of Bochus' court, would enter Bochus' camp to receive Jugurtha as a hostage. And in spite of possibility of treachery on the Mauritanian part, Sulla agreed. And Jugurtha with the remaining Jugurtha's remaining followers were massacred, and he himself was handed over in chains to Jugurtha, to Sulla by Bocchus. So this is like a depiction of this. So we have to remark here that Sulla ran tremendous risk and showed a lot of courage by agreeing going into Mauritania. I just want to make sure we pay attention to this. He's an extraordinary person. He actually, prior to that, he established a lot of ties with the court of Bocchus. He was kind of like a spy. He went on a number of missions on his own. Salus writes about this on his own, like with a small contingents, trying to negotiate. Prior to what happened, there was a lot of things happened, and Sulla played a major role, being a courageous leader, taking a lot of risks, and eventually that led to imprisonment of Jugurtha and the end of the war. So definitely Marius as a general conducted very confident campaign, but you can't really deny Sulla's role in his in here, because ultimately this war was resolved through this kind of treachery that Bocchus basically betrayed his son-in-law and gave it to gave up him to Romans. So Jugurtha was thrown into an underground prison in Rome. He was delivered to Rome and ultimately died after gracing Marius' triumph in 104 BCE. So Marius eventually was granted a triumph in Rome in 104 for conducting this war and ending it. It was a long war, almost 8 years, and Sulla had clearly been immediately responsible for this. Also, Sulla was an aristocrat. He was a patrician, and his allies encouraged this narrative later on to discredit Marius and try to shift the full credit to Sulla. You know, it's kind of like shared credit, but I guess Sulla didn't get enough of it. And eventually this really led to rivalry between Marius and Sulla, and eventually would end up in civil war. And this exactly who had the credit for this. And Marius, of course, had a triumph and downplayed Sulla's role there. So that's created a lot of problems later on between them. Okay. So at this point, there was another danger for the Rome. Very huge tribes of Cimbri and Teutons. This is a Germanic tribes. They both were migrating and appeared on the river of Rhone. And so this is the, their origin. The Germanic tribes, that's where the Denmark currently located. They eventually crossed here. They fought one war with Romans, which they won. And then they traveled, they were migrating, the whole tribe, very large population with that managed to create a big army. Eventually they came right here. This is the river Rhone here, and there was this battle of Arusio. So at this battle, the Cimbri overran the legions of Caepio with massively overwhelming numbers, and Caepio routed a man who were routed crashed into Marius' troops, another Roman contingent, and led to both armies being pinned against river of Rhone and annihilated by numerically dominant Cimbrian warriors. So Marius was still in Africa at that time when the assembly elected him a consul of for 104 BC, because this is the year when he returned and had his triumph. They elected him consul again, and now Cimbri presented a major danger, because after their decisive victory at Aruzia, they fortunately for Rome marched west into Hispania. So they crossed Pyrenean mountains and went into Hispania. Okay. So
Maybe Greg, can I jump in a little bit?
sure.
Just to talk a little bit about the context of the Roman politics in which Marius was functioning here. That during this period, which is the second half of the 2nd century BC, the Roman politics had kind of focused around an in club, of which the Metelli were major big players, in which they kind of had this notion that the state belonged to them, and the positions of state were theirs by right, which most dramatically included being generals of the army, regardless of any aptitude or skill to actually perform that function. So this defeat at Arausio was preceded by a refusal of the patrician consul to cooperate with the plebeian consul, and refused to unite, refused to combine their armies, and then were destroyed. And this had been, as you pointed out, this had happened in Numidia before Metellus got there, and then before Marius. And you mentioned Marius's connection to Scipio Aemilianus, that Scipio Aemilianus had been one of the first Roman politicians to try to fight this kind of in-club sort of stuff, which he did by promoting his own reputation for military greatness and appealing directly to the people, rather than going through the in-club of the leading members of the Senate. So when you mention Marius's electoral reform, that was actually followed the reform of Scipio Aemilianus, who instituted the secret ballot. And what Marius did was kind of reduce the opportunities for the voters to be intimidated into voting the way that the Senate wanted them to do. So what happened was that the in-club in the Senate, which became the optimates, would basically try to deny resources, first to Scipio Aemilianus, then later to Marius, in conducting their own factional struggle. So that's kind of what I wanted to jump in and say, that you didn't have a unified Rome. You had these people who were both personally extremely ambitious, Scipio Aemilianus and Marius, but were also very skillful and very accomplished, and demonstrated real commitment to the best interests of Rome, but were eating away at the conventions and respectability that had been internally undermined by the corruption and the inner dealing of the top aristocrats.
Okay, so thank you. Now, Marius was tasked with rebuilding effectively from the scratch the Gallic legions. So basing his army around the core of trained legionnaires from the last year, Marius again secured exemption from property requirements and with his newly minted reputation for victory, raised an army of some 30,000 Romans and 40,000 Italian allies and auxiliaries. He established a base around the town of Aquae Sextiae, which is right here. That's where the battle happened later on, but not right now. And there he trained his men. The location in southern France was chosen to prevent Cimbric, who was still in Spain, to invade Italy. Marius was returned as a consul again in 103 BC and again in 102. So he was really dominating the Rome at the time. So over his successful consulship, Marius was not idle. He trained his troops, built his intelligence network, and conducted diplomacy with Gallic tribes on the provincial frontiers. Keep in mind, these are the Germanic tribes, Cimbric and Teutons. He also executed significant and wide-ranging reforms to the legions. And that's what's very interesting part and very important historical, it has a historical significance. So prior to the Marian reforms, what are the property requirements for military service? And that was enforced. So not everybody could serve in the Roman army, and the poorest population could not. So the Roman Republican army was formed on property base. The wealthy and senatorial class of property values above 1 million asses. There was a bronze coin, they used there. So over 1 million, they served as the cavalry and top commanders. Then qualification for a knight or equestrian class was 400,000 asses, and above. And they served as a cavalry or top infantry, and this is the class of equites. The bulk of legionaries were formed from the middle class of between 50 and 100 asses. And they basically also were subdivided into 3 other classes who were actually served even in the army. So the poorest class was the first line of fighting called hastati. Then after them, more experienced line was principes, and then the third line of veterans is triarii, and also even their armor sometimes had some differences. The richer one and more experienced were armed a little better, and the poorer citizens of the poorer one, between 11,000 asses and 25,000 asses, served as a light infantry with slings and javelins. They were called velites, and they usually start the engagement by like a light artillery thing, throwing javelins and using slings. So the lowest class, that below 11,000, 11,000 asses, didn't serve at all in the Roman army. They were property-less, and that's where the word proletari came from. They were called proletari, and they were not allowed to serve them. And this is the huge amount of population that were not allowed to serve, and that's served in the Roman army. And that's exactly what needed to be changed, because he already used the waiving of the property laws to recruit before. So legionaries, just to give you an additional idea of what the coins they call ass was worth, the legionaries were paid 10 asses per day in 14 AD. I mean, that's the number I found. It's as per Tacitus, and there would be about 3,600 asses per year, and Polybius was quoting 120 denarii per year. there would be about 1,200 asses per year. But these are different times. And we also know that Caesar doubled the pay of legionaries. Maybe it would be 1,800 asses per year during the Marius time, because it was 3,600 after Caesar. So senatorial class was about 1% of population. This is just interesting statistics that I came across in my research. So senatorial class was about 1% of population. We know about 1% in our society. And their average wealth was about 10 to 20 times larger than the middle class. And this is a remarkably low degree of economic inequality, because in comparison, in the United States today, this number is more like 200. So the 1% is on average 200 times more wealthy than the middle class. In Roman times, they were only 10, 20 times wealthier than the middle class. So this statistic, by the way, comes from the book of Peter Turchin of University of Connecticut, the book called Rise and Fall of Empires. Very interesting book, has very interesting ideas about formation of empires on the frontiers. So in the aftermath of the Second Punic War, the population of Rome was 200,000 adult male citizens. We're talking about Rome and its territories after the Punic War in about 201 BCE. So there was 200,000 adult male citizens. This is Rome and the territory, Roman citizens. By the end of the 2nd century BCE, we're talking, this is the time of Marius, it doubled to about 400,000 adult male citizens. So Roman custom of equal distribution of property among the heirs led to impoverishment of population within a few generations. So you know that during the medieval times and later on, we have what the primogenitor thing, where then only oldest son acquires the whole wealth, while by Roman laws, all the male children had an equal share of the inheritance, and that's why by keep dividing it, you know, a lot of male population were led to a kind of poor state below 11,000, and therefore ineligible for service in Roman army. So, that needed to be corrected. So Marian reforms were actually implemented in 107, first of all, as a reaction to military and logistical stagnation of the Roman Empire in the late 2nd century BCE. The reforms revolutionized the Roman military machine, introducing the standardized legionary, the cohort unit, and drastically altered the property and weaponry requirement for recruitment. The reforms also put the responsibility of supplying and managing an army in the hands of the general. So Marius also granted citizenship and land to all Roman soldiers. So it's really amazing that now for those people who didn't have funds and couldn't provide the armor for the infantry, now the Roman general would be responsible providing the funds. Very often he could get funds from the Senate, but sometimes, you know, the Roman generals, who often a very rich men, sometimes in some circumstances they actually use their personal funds to have an army and to recruit an army, but they were responsible. So now this was they no longer needed to provide the weaponry and supplies. So Roman, when Marius became junior consul in 107 and was appointed task of concluding the war with Juguta, he had no army, and that was when he started this reform. So so it was based in volunteers because of eligibility requirements. So this is the, let me see. Okay, this is the kind of new legion that was standardized because of the Marian reforms. So now the size of the legion was standardized, the weapons were standardized and provided by the general. And as you could see now, the legion approximately 4,500 men. Of course, there were some auxiliaries attached to it, you know, and it's, you see there are 9 cohorts. Okay, it consisted of, and each cohort consisted of 6 centuries, 80 men each, 480 men in a cohort, and each century consisted of 10 contuberniums with 8 soldiers in each, and each contubernium was supplied with 1 mule to carry the equipment. So that was another of the Marian reports, because you know, he also created this a system of mule to carry. Therefore, Romans didn't have to carry everything by themselves, and also there was a 480 cavalry attached. So the first cohort, which called Prima cohort, you know, was a double strength, as you could see here. So,
Greg, question.
yes.
Did they also divide between different lines between, I know you've mentioned due to the personal, how did they establish the personal wealth? Was there some kind of, as you would know, a general kind of rating system?
They had the census. You know, the Romans
Census,
conducted
okay.
census, yeah. And
Okay.
where you would have to, how many people in the family, how many adults, with your property, and things like that.
Okay, and then the second question I have is, what formation, if any, they have established, like turtle formation, or there was no formation at the time, this was a later development?
No, the formation is a matter of tactics. I mean, this is like a different subject, what tactics legion used and what kind of formation they did. Of course, they used it before, you know, different kind of formations there were, but you know, what happened here, he standardized the size of the legion, property requirement were waived, the military, the equipment, the armor was standardized. It was provided now by the state rather than personally, you know, not for everybody, but for the most. And the result of it, now that they didn't have to, so Marius arranged the state to supply property, proletariat or propertyless people with arms. He also, in a way, because they were paid, right? The legionaries were paid. He also kind of provided the masses with permanent employment opportunity as a professional soldier, and to gain also from the spoils of the campaign. So it actually brought a huge amount of people and wealth, because now they were paid on a regular basis and also could bring spoils. So it led to some improvement of the population in terms of their finances, because most of these masses, they they had little hope of gaining status in any other way, and so they flocked to join Marius in the new army. And in addition, he also professional soldiers now were recruited for an enlistment of a term of 16 years, and later it was raised to 20 years of full service. And
Now, what about Greg? What about conditioning wise? I know they were required to run about, and don't quote me on it, like 6 miles a day. Was there any kind of improvement in their physical activities so that they'll be more prepared for the war?
I'm not. I cannot say. I'm not sure about.
I can comment on that. It was really entirely up to the commanding general. And some commanding generals understood that they were capable of evaluating the military capability of their forces and determining how much training they needed to do before they led them against the enemy. This is kind of pretty much what I was saying before, that this was one of the keys of generalship. You'd get these aristocrats who never really thought about it much and would just take their troops, regardless of their condition, lead them into battle and get destroyed. And the generals who had more experience of what it actually meant, Marius among them, would basically evaluate their men and see how much training they felt was necessary before they felt that they were prepared to confront an enemy in battle. And another comment on this army organization, that we should point out that this Marian legion is replacing what was called the Manipular legion, which had existed since they say about the Samnite War, so beginning of the 3rd century, and in the unit of the smallest unit of maneuver in the Manipular army was the Maniple, which was about 160 men. So instead of having, that would mean 30 tactical units in the legion, and that had become very unwieldy. And so what Marius was doing was he was basically making one cohort out of every 3 maniples and creating an army that these were now, they still had the advantage of being able to maneuver independently, but they were now have enough heft and mass so that they made a difference, and they were easier to command because there weren't as many of them.
Okay, thank you. So now, also, as you could see, every legion had a baggage of train of about 500 to 550 mules, or about 1 mule per each 8 to 10 soldiers. And this logistical change drastically reduced the size of the baggage train required as a support and made the army much more mobile. The second important reform implemented by Marius was the formation of a standing army. He introduced career soldiers, because now they were serving for 16 and later 20 years, introduced career soldiers with contracted employment and standardized training and equipment. Drilling and training took place all year round, even in times of peace, not just when the war threatened. So you could imagine that the quality of the soldiering is greatly improved. With now standardized equipment and uniformed and heavily trained legionary became the backbone of the Roman army. And Marius reorganized Roman legion from the system of maniples into cohorts as follows. We just showed that. I just went through this. And now the third reform that Marius was able to introduce was legislation that offered retirement benefits in the form of land grants. Members of the head count who had completed their term of service would be given a pension by their general and a plot of land in conquered region of which to retire. Officers and commanders were given monetary rewards and were 10 to 25 times greater than that of a common soldier. Finally, Marius granted citizens of the Italian allies like Etruria and Picentum and so on, full Roman citizens for those who served if they fought for Rome and completed a period of service in the Roman army. However, as a consequence of this, the loyalty of the legions shifted away from Roman state and towards the generals who led the army, as the soldiers now had a direct financial incentive to support the general's ambition. It became alarmingly common for a general to prolong his imperium by using the army to influence the Senate and consolidate his power. Some even went as far as to declare war on their political enemies, leading to civil war. This led ultimately to the destruction of the Republic and its transformation into the Roman Empire under the rule of an emperor. So that's kind of like the consequence of this reform. It kind of, you have to be aware of this. So now, following the Battle of Versailles, let me see. This is second battle in 101. That's part of that reform. Marius granted an Italian soldiers Roman citizenship. This effectively eliminated of notion of allied legions. Henceforth, Italian legions would be regarded as Roman legions. The role of allied legions would eventually be taken up by contingents of auxiliary troop called auxilia. The decision to re-elect Marius as a consul for 102 BCE was vindicated when Cimbri returned from Hispania in 102 BC and moved on Italy with a number of other tribes along with them, and the Teutons and their allies Ambrones, another Germanic tribe, were heading south and advanced towards Italy from the west along the coast. Yeah, I'm talking about when they came back here, they divided here. One of them went here in order to cross the Alps along the coast. The other one crossed the Alps in here. So I have another map, this one, and that really explained what's happening. So this is the Pyrenean Mountains that divide Hispania from the rest. This is Iberian Peninsula called because of these mountains. That's where they crossed here in the Iberia, going here, and that's they divided they divided here. One of them went I'm sorry, they went all the way here, and that's where they divided in this valley. So part of them went into here, and I'm sorry, they went into here, Aquae Sextiae, and was planning to pass along the shore into Italy, and the other one went into the pass somewhere. It's actually somewhere north here, and then eventually came into this area. So this is Pyrenean Mountains, this is Alps, and this is the Apennine Mountains ridge that goes through the Italian peninsula. So now what's happening next is, by the way, this is called Brenner Pass. I think this is the, I don't know exactly where it is, but it's somewhere in this area. It still exists right now. There's a road built there through the Alps. So now the Teutonus and Ambronis went into this area, Aqua Sectae. That's where the Marius was waiting for them. And the other one decided to cross the Alps into Italy from the north in the Brenner Pass. This is the Cimbri, and they were also joined by a Celtic tribe of Tigurini, and they crossed it there. So two consuls at this point, Marius is one of them, divided their forces. Marius heading west, holding Italian Alps. And here, in this Aqua Sextae, that's where one of the major battles happened. So he denied Teutons and Ambrones that moved in their battle because they were much more superior in numbers, and staying inside a fortified camp. So Marius didn't want to go into open battle. They had not too many forces. There's a great disadvantage. So and they're fighting off the attempts to storm the camp. So failing to take his camp, the Teutonists and their allies moved on, and Marius shadowed them, waiting for an opportune moment to attack. So an accidental skirmish between Roman camp servants getting water at the river and bathing Ambronis, because they were decided to take a bath, and then it became a skirmish, and it turned into a spontaneous battle between Marius' army and the Ambronis, which is a smaller tribe than Teutonus. And at this time, the Romans defeated some 30,000 Ambronis. So this is some depiction of this battle. Okay. So, and at this point, Marius knew that Teutonus, you remember Teutonic Order later on in medieval time. So Teutonics were still in the field, unengaged, and he feared a counterattack. So he sent one of his legates, Claudius Marcellus, with 3,000 troops some distance away, and ordered him to remain undetected. 4 days later, Marius marched his army into the plains near Aqua Sextae and took position on the high ground. The next day, the Teutonus and Ambronis together counterattacked up the hill, and Roman strategy, discipline, and training asserted itself, and the tribesmen were unable to dislodge the legions from their superior position. The battle continued for much of the morning, with neither side gaining the upper hand. Marcus Claudius Marcellus, at this point, the one that he left with 3,000, flanked their advance with a column of 3,000 men, turning the battle into the slaughter. So what happened? He, abruptly, and unexpectedly attacked the flank and the rear of the Teuton and Ambron tribes, and they basically turned this battle into the slaughter. Estimations vary from 100 to 200,000 being slain or captured. So the small army of Marius, of superbly trained Romans, because he trained them there for more than a year, year and a half, and there was about 37,000 of them had succeeding, defeating over 100, from between 100 to 200 Germans. There were two engagements there, one at the river where he killed 30,000, and then the other one later on in a few days on the hill, that what I was just described. It was a significant battle. This is the Roman formation, just another depiction. Okay, that's the next battle. So again, just to see the map, that's where it happened. You know, there were two battles here, and as a result, a huge victory. 37,000 Romans defeated army of maybe between 100 and 200,000 people. So proceeds from the sale of slaves here usually went to the commanding general, but in this case, Marius decided to donate the profits from the sale to his soldiers and officers. This, of course, made him even more popular than he already was with his men. Upon hearing the news, Rome went wild with relief. Finally, one of their generals had defeated the Germans. Gaius Marius, as an act of gratitude, was again elected consul in absentia with the legate Manius Aquilius as his colleague. So Marius' consular colleague in 102, that's prior to this battle, Quintinius Lutatius Catulus, did not wear so well. He suffered some casualties in a minor engagement. He actually was positioned somewhere here against the other side, the other part of the Cimbri specifically, that was even more numerous. Just wanted to show you the other map. So you see, so that's where they divided. The Ambrones and Teutones went here, and Cimbri went this way through the Brennus Pass of the Alps and entered, you know, and somewhere here they, in a small engagement before entering the pass, before crossing the Alps, they defeated small engagement Catulus, and he suffered some casualties, and he retreated, and then Cimbri entered into the northern Italy. So after election, he returned to Rome to announce his victory at Aquae Sextiae. He was elected in absentia as a consul, and he announced, and he deferred his triumph because he was granted triumph, but he didn't have time for that, because he promptly marched north with his army to join Catulus, who retreated, you know, and Marius from Rome joined Catulus right here to stand against the Cimbri. So now at this time, by the way, the also there was a slave revolt in Sicily, what they called Second Servile War, and so the Catulus had to go into Sicily. That's where this war happened, to suppress the slave uprising. The Third Servilian War was War of Spartacus. By the way, we will talk about this in later presentations, but this was the second one. So now Marius was in command. He is remaining consul here in this battle. So now this is the battle of Versailles. That's where it happens. So this is the depiction of that battle. So on July 30th, 101 BCE, the Roman army marched into the Rhodian plains. That's where this city is. Marius split his own 30 to 32,000 man strong army into two lots, each forming the wing of the army, while Catulus and his 24,000 less experienced troops formed the center. At this point, Catulus is no longer consul; he's a proconsul. You know, the consul is what's his name? Miselius. and he went to Sicily. So now Marius took command of the left wing, with Sulla commanding the cavalry at this time. They're still together. They're probably brewing from their enmity, but they're fighting the common enemy. Marius has also very sensibly formed up lines facing west. Therefore, the Cimbri had to fight with the morning sun in their eyes. The wind was blowing towards the enemy, so the dust kicked up by their maneuvering blew towards the Cimbri, impairing their eyesight. Since the Romans held their position, the Cimbri had to come to them, forcing them to expend additional energy because they had to come to Romans. The Cimbri had launched themselves in a huge wedge towards Catullus' center, their cavalry to the front. The Cimbri cavalry then suddenly turned right, hoping to draw the Romans out of their ordered ranks or trying to outflank them. Unfortunately for Cimbri, their horsemen were taken completely by surprise by the superior Roman cavalry under the command of Sulla. The Cimbri horses were forced back into the main body of their infantry, causing chaos. Seeing an opportunity, Catullus ordered his legion to advance and attack. When they reached the Cimbri, they threw their pillar into disorganized ranks. The legionary drew their swords and was soon in hand-to-hand combat. The other wing of Roman army moved in on Cimbri flanks, hemming them in. The Roman forces were smaller, but more highly trained and disciplined. Furthermore, Roman legionaries excelled at close quarter combat, and being so tightly packed, were in their element. The summer heat also worked against the barbarians, who were not accustomed to fighting in these temperatures. Unlike Romans, the battle became a rout. A Germanic Celtic confederation under the command of Cimbric King Boiorix was defeated by Roman army 3 times smaller. The Cimbri army was approximately 160,000, and this is contemporary calculations, not exaggerated by Roman historians. The Roman army together were approximately 52,000, so 52 against 160. The battle marked the end of the Germanic threat to the Roman Republic. The Cimbri were virtually wiped out, with Marius claiming to have killed 100,000 warriors and capturing and enslaving many thousands, including a large number of women and children. Children of the surviving captives may have been among the rebelling gladiators in the Third Servilian War of the Spartacus. That's an assumption, of course, but it's interesting. They must have been children and grew up as slaves. The news of the decisive victory at Versailles was brought to Rome by Marius' brother-in-law, Gaius Julius Caesar. This is the father of the famous Julius Caesar later on. So he was fought from under Marius at the time. He brought the news, and this is the time, like a year before the birth of his son, Julius Caesar. He became a father next year. This is 101 BCE. Julius Caesar was born in 100. The end of the war also saw the beginning of a growing rivalry between Marius and Sulla, which would eventually lead to the first of Rome's great civil wars. As a result of his role in Versailles victory, Sulla's prestige has risen considerably. As you remember, he commanded the cavalry that in the beginning of the battle defeated the Cimbric cavalry and brought the havoc, and actually probably was the source of the whole victory. Marius' career was at its peak, while Sulla was still on the rise. His 6th consulship in 100 was a period of political controversy. He unsuccessfully upheld recall of Metellus Numidicus, This is his previous commander. He served under him at the beginning of the war against Jugurta. But in 98, Marius decided to travel east to Galatia. Galatia is in Asia Minor. Plutarch portrays this voluntary exile as a great humiliation for the six-time consul. Considered obnoxious to the nobles and to the people alike, he was even forced to abandon his candidature for the censorship of 97. Plutarch also reports that while in the east, that's interesting, Marius attempted to goad Mithridates VI of Pontus into declaring war on Rome, so that Roman people might be forced to rely on Marius' military leadership once more. This anecdote, however, is discounted by Evans, who dismissed it as nothing more than a malicious rumor, perhaps created by Rutilius Rufus or Sulla. So they think that this is an anecdote that was just to discredit Marius. So we're coming to an end of presentation. So the later period will be covered in Sulla's civil war. Marius been consul 7 times. Last time was consul with Cinna, while Sulla was on the campaign against Mithridates. And it was irregular election called the Comitia Centuriata. And as soon as he was elected in 96, he was basically dead within a few days after that, because of some disease, So this is really the end of my presentation.
Excellent presentation, Greg. Not to be deterred by the intruders, but so you say the question to you, I guess. So this is officially beginning of professional Roman army,
Right?
you would think.
Mhm.
Now, since this time, this is basically, there was no, I mean, we could jump in the future. Was there any other improvements that people did, like Caesar or, or any other emperor that was as impeccable or influential as the Marius one? So this is the only one that we see that would professionalize the army and make it more fierce force in the area.
I'm gonna stop sharing for now. Okay. I think.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody. Okay. Well, I don't think this kind of reform was really fundamental. I don't think anybody did anything on that scale. There was a major. It's the whole concept of, he created the standing army, because prior to that it was voluntary. But we know that Caesar doubled the pay of the legionnaires. That certainly gave quite a big change. Honestly, I don't think I can confidently comment on all future reforms. There were some other reforms. I cannot imagine anything more essential than this reform. But yes, definitely, our army is always changing. There were many other reforms, I'm sure, but this is the major one. Anybody else? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the process was gradual, actually. Pay for soldiers on active duty was introduced very early, as early as 405 BC. But it was only when they were on campaign, and it was, as Greg said, it was only people who met the property requirements that were allowed in the army. So it was a citizen army, the citizenry in arms, really. But it was over that period of time, the army was gradually becoming more professional. As Rome started acquiring overseas possessions just by nature of how of the distances. It made it necessary for the soldiers to serve for longer periods of time. In other words, when the original Roman citizen army, like most ancient armies in archaic period, the army would fight during the summer and break off to go back and harvest their crops for the next year and plant. So you would have kind of annual campaigns in the summer weather, and that was it. And that would be okay as long as your military campaigns are happening, 50 miles away from Rome. But at the point that you're fighting in Spain and you're fighting in North Africa, you can't send people home every year. So this increase in military service and what was something that happened over an extended period of time. And the other thing was the eating away, the results of Rome's success in the wars following the Punic Wars, Rome's success against the Hellenistic kingdoms, the conquest of Macedonia, the conquest of what became the Roman province of Asia against the Hellenistic king Antiochus III, these resulted in huge transfers of wealth to Rome, slaves, gold, and it ended up financing huge accumulation of huge landed estates, and it drove the small farmers who had been the guts of the army in large cases off the land. And the influx of wealth provided opportunities for them in the cities where the aristocrats who were controlling all this wealth would start spending it very conspicuously. But when that money started to run out, that is when you started getting this rapid rise of the proletariat. So ultimately, they had started as being free farmers, forced off the land because of the length of military service, because of the accumulation of wealth by the senatorial class, and then the presence of talented individuals who were ambitious, like Scipio Aemilianus, like Marius, who then resorted to recruiting the proletariat, and as Greg said, making them into a professional army that was overwhelmingly loyal to the general and not to the Senate, because the Senate had done nothing for them, and the general had done everything for them. They were totally dependent on the general. So it was a gradual process, but Marius was like a key point of inflection where the dam broke, where he finally said, okay, I'm going to recruit the people with no property at all. And that was the huge difference.
Excellent. I appreciate the answer.
I think everybody is unmuted, so if you want to comment or unmute yourself, and if you want to ask a question or comment, please do so. If not, we will. I just wanted to mention that I will gonna do another presentation on March 19th for the Social War and the First Mithridatic War. So if you're interested, please, you're welcome to join on March 19th. Okay. Anyone wants to say anything, comment, or unmute yourself, or in the chat? Questions, comments? Let's stay for another few minutes, and if not, we'll finish. Okay. All right.
One interesting area of speculation is how much Julius Caesar was able to learn from Gaius Marius. You know, you can imagine little Gaius sitting on Uncle Marius's knee and listening to the war stories, you know, from the guy who was in his life the greatest Roman general, greatest Roman soldier, you know, talking to the person who became the greatest Roman general of his generation. And so you can imagine what their, you know, what their dinner conversation was like. Little Gaius, Uncle Marius.
Could be. I mean, so Marius died when Caesar was about 13, maybe years old, 13, 14 years old. So yeah, well, maybe as a kid, yeah, it's interesting. Oh, no, wait a second. No, I think he was like very little. I'm not sure. I think Marius died in 96.
87.
87? Okay.
And Caesar was born, I think, in 100.
And yeah, Caesar was born in 100. Yeah. So I was right. Yeah, he was like 13, maybe. He died in January of 86. So he was just maybe 13 years old. So yeah, I can imagine. So during he came back from the Cimbric War, like as a great, like in 101. But then later on he was in Rome, you know, after Caesar's birth. Yeah, until. In 80,
Now he was forced to flee. I mean, in the civil war with Sulla.
Right.
And we should say that towards the end of Marius's career, when he finally came back to Rome before his 7th consulship,
right,
he had clearly lost his mind.
And
came back and instituted a reign of terror.
Right, with Cinna,
with a group of followers that were called Marius's wolves. And terrorized Rome until Marius certainly seems like he had a massive stroke and he just kind of dropped dead. But he you know, he had been bitter. He'd been chased out of Rome by Sulla. He had hidden in a swamp.
Right.
You know, he had barely gotten out with his life. And that kind of began, you know, all-out warfare between the Populares and the Optimates that, as you said, brought down the Republic.
Right.
It never really stopped after Marius. Just kind of brief periods when, you know, there'd be a dictatorship and someone would kill all of his opponents that he could reach. Caesar barely escaped with his life when Sulla was victorious.
Right.
And had to flee.
So definitely. Interesting times. So, but yeah, so for a short period of time, him and Cinna, they became consuls while Sulla was in Asia and Greece and Asia.
Let me suggest people who are interested in reading this in a really enjoyable way. There are a whole series of historical novels which start with the novel called The First Man in Rome, which is about Gaius Marius, all about his life and his early relationship with Sulla, and then it goes on for, like, I don't know, 7 volumes. Each of them is more than 1,000 pages, and it ends all the way with Antony and Cleopatra. It's written by Colleen McCullough, and it's, you know, for my money, I really love this series of books, The First Man in Rome, and that's really
Grass Crown. The second one is Grass Crown.
Great way to learn Roman history, a kind of a painless way to figure out who all the players are, because there are so many, what their family relations are, and even more it gives you insight into what motivates these people. I think that McCullough had real insight into what made them tick. And I know I learned a great deal from those books and really enjoyed them.
Okay, all right. So I guess this is going to be the end. All the best to everyone. Thank you for coming, and hopefully see you next time. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.